Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
A massive warm welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. What have you all been up to? If you have been thinking of launching your own podcast and need a little help, remember, you can work with me and my Podcasting Made Simple production and launch program, where I take away all the tech stuff and let you just concentrate on recording conversations. However, if you don't need my help, that's cool too. I can still help you out. In the next few days, I should be able to offer a special discount code for Libsyn podcast hosting. The code will essentially give you the rest of the month free and the whole of the following month free too. So my little tip for you all is, if you were thinking of sign up on the 2nd of the month and you get nearly 2 months free. I don't have the code yet, but I just wanted to let you all know in case you were thinking of signing up. Hang on for a couple of days and I'll look after you. But on with today's show. Do you remember Josh Garrett from MOBI? He's been on the show before, and I invited him back after reading MOBI's announcement around new software product features that are actually going to enhance enterprise mobility enablement, integration and orchestration. What strikes me about these new products is they offer unprecedented one-touch control of mobility management programs to increase business visibility control and cost savings. And let's be honest, the enterprise landscape is exploding and evolving at the moment. And we can thank the introduction of new devices and capabilities and broader adoption of those non-traditional mobile endpoints by businesses. Not my words, they're the words of Josh Garrett, president and co-founder of MOBI, who's coming back on today. And he also said, while new technology is dramatically improving the way we work, it's also incredibly complicated for businesses to manage profitability, especially when it comes to deploying and managing devices under its virtual roof. And for those reasons alone, MOBI is constantly evolving and trying to stay one step ahead of these changes to satisfy their customers' mobility management needs. But enough of me speaking Josh's words there. Let's get him back on the show. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Indianapolis so we can speak with Josh Garrett from MOBI. Well, a massive warm welcome back to the show, Josh. We chatted way back on episode 295 in July 2017, and I suspect that we've had a few listeners since then. So can you just tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Neil. I must have done a reasonable job last time to get invited back, so thank you. My name's Josh Garrett. I serve as president and COO of MOBI, and I'm also a co-founder. We were founded back in 2009 in Indianapolis, Indiana, here in the States, and I manage everything from a connected device standpoint after the sale happens. So all of the transition, implementation, and then post-sale support rolls up through my organizations.
Now, you've been incredibly busy since we last spoke, and there have been a number of announcements, so that's one of the great reasons to get you back on and have a bit of a catch-up today. But most recently, you announced new updates to your software product aimed at connecting all mobile technologies and third-party integrations with one centralized system. So can you expand on that a little and how the enterprise landscape is exploding and evolving with the introduction of all these new devices, capabilities, and broader adoption of non-traditional mobile endpoints by businesses? Because it's an incredibly complex place to be in and quite daunting for businesses at the moment, isn't it?
It certainly can be. And, we've even sort of pivoted in terms of our messaging because of exactly what you described there in terms of it not just being mobile technologies, but what we now refer to as connected devices. And the reason for that is, customers have been asking us to manage all these, what we would consider a non-traditional device, things like wearables, laptops, printers, ruggedized devices, even things like drones and VR systems. And so, not all of those are necessarily mobility related in terms of having a carrier, but are certainly connected to the customers or that enterprise's ecosystem. So, we're seeing that evolution. It's being really driven by the creep of consumer devices into enterprises, and a great example is thinking about virtual reality. I mean, that really started from a gaming standpoint, but now enterprises are using them within their own ecosystems to manage all sorts of different interactions in logistics or certainly in healthcare. So this trend really started with the introduction of the iPhone and executives bringing that into the enterprise, and now it's coming really from all different ends. So, we have one customer, for example, we started managing their traditional mobility devices about 4 years ago, and they had about 6,000 devices. Today, they have 10 times that amount as they've deployed all sorts of different devices throughout their organization. So it is incredibly important to these companies, but certainly it is also getting more and more difficult to manage those properly.
So we did mention it can be complicated, and particularly complicated to manage it profitably. So can you share with the listeners why it's so complicated, especially when it comes to deploying and managing these devices, which there is just so many and they keep growing, all under one virtual roof?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we've done some market research, some studies, just even talked to our own customers, and it seems to be that after about 800 connected devices, you're going to start needing more than one person to manage those devices. And if you think about a connected device now being a much broader definition, you're not just talking about 800 phones, but now you're talking about, tablets and sensors and wearables. Just throwing people at the problem is not the solution. So that's where it becomes very cost prohibitive. Not only are you spending a lot of people you're spending a lot of money on resources, but you're also not giving them the right tools to manage those properly as well. So you're missing out on things like optimizations of spend, and not only is that optimizations of spend once it's happened, but it's also proactive optimization of spend. In other words, preventing that cost from ever happening. Preventing that six-figure international roaming bill from ever happening because of having knowledge that person is going on that trip, and being able to be proactive about not only changing the way that their device is configured, but also educating them on how they should be using that device. So all of that really starts adding up, and it's too complicated to manage with Excel. So that's really been the big difference for us coming in terms of utilizing software instead of utilizing people. Software obviously scales as the programs scale. People you have to scale through hiring more people.
It doesn't seem that long ago that IT provided a new employee with a laptop and a smartphone and an account to log in with, and that was it, job done. But like you said a few moments ago, we now have laptops, desktops, tablets, wearables and sensors. And it's not just bring your own device that actually got us into this position. I mean, IoT is exacerbating that even further. So are the businesses you speak with struggling to manage these influx of devices?
They really are, especially when you mention things like IoT, where you have so many different vendors offering solutions. Especially in large enterprises, you'll have different business units that are deploying these, but not deploying them in a uniform way. And certainly, as you have turnover within an organization, nobody knows where these all are. And it's one thing to sort of ping a phone or call that device and understand where it is. Another thing to figure out, well, where are these 1,000 sensors we've now deployed? A lot of them, too, are oftentimes being deployed in kind of the realm of shadow IT, where they aren't really bringing in an IT organization. They're being deployed by the business who thinks it's a good idea, and it probably is a good idea, but it's very hard to get in front of those. And when you start thinking about all these sensors, all these devices getting deployed out within the enterprise, each one of these have the potential to have company data on them or access to the company network on them. So not getting in front of this problem has much bigger implications than just the idea of not understanding where is my inventory of devices or where is my spend of devices. It also has a pretty big security implication to it. And if you don't know where all these devices are, or even who's managing all of these devices, things like even simple things in terms of keeping them compliant from a firmware security update standpoint can start causing real headaches within an organization.
So at MOBI then, how are you helping business overcome these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this earlier, but we are really putting software first to what we like to say is centralize, comprehend, and control. And these are really words that we live by. So whether it's a new customer or if it's a customer that's looking to bring on additional connected devices, the first thing we're going to do is centralize all the devices in their ecosystem into our software platform. And once that happens, we then become the trusted hub for everything that is considered a connected device. And like we talked about earlier, that definition of a connected device certainly has grown over the last few years. Once we know what you have, we can then start giving you insights into what that really means. And that's not just what that means from a cost perspective, but it's also, what does that mean from a security perspective? As I was talking earlier about IoT, what does it mean to make sure all your devices have the current firmware? What does it mean to make sure that all the devices that should have MDM/UEM, the AirWatch, Mobile Iron, Master 360, making sure that all the devices that do have it or should have it do have it? What does it mean from an inventory standpoint, even from a program standpoint? So that perspective gives our customers then the ability to control, which is the last piece of that triangle, control and manage these elements themselves. And like I said, this is all done through the MOBI software. We've specifically built it over really almost a decade. I hate to say it's been that long, but we've been iterating it for over a decade for this specific tasks and for this anticipation and this growth of these connected devices.
Now, I also read recently how you've created something called Mobots, which sound incredibly cool to extend people's existing teams. It actually allows them to free employees of those repetitive, time-consuming tasks and actually put more time back into their day. So can you expand on that? Because it sounds incredibly cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're very excited about the 5 Mobots that we have. I hate to say we're proud of them, but almost like a son or daughter. But one of them is actually named after my daughter, so I'll go so far as to say we're proud of them. As we were looking at our own business a couple of years ago, it's interesting that I was telling you earlier about how our customers previously were having to scale with people to support these devices. Well, we really found ourselves in a similar situation. Even having the software, we still had to scale our business with people to support all the transactions that were coming in, especially when we had to interface with systems that didn't have any type of API access. So we decided to take a step back and figure out, well, how can we continue to scale with software? And that's where the 5 Mobots have come into play. Each one of those have an individual task within our organization. So one of them, for example, is called Mikey. Mikey is actually named after an intern. And Mikey the intern's job, was to go through on a schedule and pull in all of the carrier bills for all of our customers and bring them into the software. And he had a pretty rigid rigid calendar to follow. And so that was his job every day, as he would go in and log into 75 different carrier systems, pull down the data, and bring it into MOBI. Well, that certainly doesn't scale, but it's also a very monotonous job of just doing that. So we've been able to build a bot that replicates everything that Mikey was doing, and we eliminate the risk of the knowledge that Mikey had in his head is now actually translated into software. So if he misses a day at work or leaves the organization, we aren't having to miss a beat in terms of bringing all that data in. Another one of our Mobots is Johnny. Johnny is our processing bot. It's probably the one I'm most excited about today. He has gone from zero to handling 57% of our global transactions over the last 18 months. That's as of September of 2018. So this has not only allowed us to scale in terms of effectively getting data from the MOBI software into the third-party system, but we're also completing them much quicker because they're done instantaneously and 100% accurate. And that's irregardless of if there's an API available or not. Which most of the time when you're dealing with third parties, they don't have APIs or they have limited APIs, and that starts decreasing rapidly when you start talking about a global scale. So for us, this has really been transformative for our business. I've actually had as many talks with our customers about how we've been able to utilize this type of technology within their own businesses as I have about talking about other parts of mobility. Customers are very excited about this concept.
Excellent. Now, one of the reasons I did invite you back on the show today was when I read that Rosie will join your existing family of Mobots to help customers optimise mobile spend. And I believe that, like you said, Rosie joins the family of 4 existing Mobots, Audrey, Johnny, Otto and Mikey, who were deployed back in December last year. I'm left with so many questions, though, now. I mean, are you secretly planning on taking over the world with your family of robots? Is whatever happened to Mikey, the human intern, named after? And also, are there any new additions on the horizon? And if there is, what about Neil for a name?
It's funny you say that, because we have so many people that suggest they want to be named after a Mobot. So I'll definitely add Neil to the list. We'll have to figure out if I can work out an automatic blog bot, then I will definitely call it Neil. No, and I promise we're not turning into Cyberdyne Systems there, a little Terminator movie reference for you there. So we don't have a plan to take over the entire world with the Mobots. But, it's interesting in your comment there about, what happened to Mikey from an employee perspective. That was something that when we announced this to our own employees was a hurdle we had to get over, which was we are introducing technology that is going to take a portion of your job and is going to take it away from you. And that was concerning to folks who thought, geez, I'm going to lose my job. And from the start, we were very clear with employees that we are not going to be laying off people as a result of this. What we are going to be doing, though, is making your job different. So the very monotonous tasks of just having to swivel chair information into a third-party system or have to deal with pulling down bills, we're going to take that away, and we're going to allow you to work on much higher-level type customer-solving problems. And so quite a few of those folks who are now no longer having to do data entry are now helping to actually build out these bots. And in fact, I've been very adamant within our own organization that if you are able to automate your own job, you are so much more valuable to me than just being protective of that job. So we've really done a 180 in terms of that perception. What I have told them has remained true. We've not let go of anybody as a result of automation in those 18 to 24 months that we've implemented it. But so I'm now getting a lot more feedback from our feet on the ground, those folks that are doing the day-to-day activities, saying, here's another way that we can apply automation within our business. So if you think about our own MOBI and Mobot roadmap, we do have some interesting things planned. Not only are we expanding on the current capabilities of those Mobots, but we're also having them and doing some new functions as well. So a lot of times we'll run these ideas that come up to us from our employees through our customer advisory board for their feedback and direction, and that's made up of our top customers, which has really served us well in terms of identifying where we should and should not be investing. Two areas you'll see a lot more investment for us is bot-enabled data analytics. That's one thing that's very important to our customers. And we're also looking at how automation can be implemented within our help desk without having an impact to the white glove service that our customers are used to. So it's obviously finding a balance and making sure that the cost savings of technology don't turn into a poor overall performance.
So do you have any examples of businesses that are embracing your new tools that provide this greater enablement and integration and the team of Mobots and the difference that they're actually making to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. The one that comes to mind immediately is we have one of our larger customers. They were doing a mobility-related Office 365 migration, and they came to us and said they were interested in MOBI spinning up a short-term help desk to support this initiative. It was about 1,500 devices that were going to get migrated, and their expectation was about half of those users would call in for some type of support. We came back to them, and they've been very they've embraced our technology and said, what if we built you a version of our Audrey chatbot that interfaces with users and guides them through the migration process. And if there's a problem on the back end, there'll be a human there that it can transfer to, and they can finish up the live chat. So not only would it be about 1/8 of the cost, but it would be available 24/7. And so we did a pilot project with them for those 1,500 devices. And at the end of the day, we only received 10 calls. Audrey, and it was a version of Audrey. Audrey ended up talking to about 750 of those users, so that about a 50% response rate. However, the vast majority of those, 98.5% of those, were able to solve the problem by just interfacing with the chatbot. So that was a great example that we gave to other customers. Other customers have then used the same technology for their own migrations. But it also allowed them to use the same technology to roll that migration out to the wider enterprise without costing them any more. and without honestly having to the pain of having to spin up and spin back down a temporary help desk. So that's just one example of how we've been able to implement it.
So, I mean, where do you go from here? What's next for MOBI? Is there anything else you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about our future. We just released a new workflow system at our annual user conference last month called Untethered. This allows our customers to build custom workflows within MOBI and also bring in third-party functionality. So I'm really excited about what this means for our customers, not only in terms of them being able to control and view their own workflows within a GUI that uses what's called BPMN, Business Process Model and Notation, which is a very standardized approach, but it'll also allow us to extend the functionality to other third parties to allow them to offer their services and have them be built upon our platform. We get asked all the time from companies, they want to offer some type of technology or service to our customer base. This will allow them to utilize this solution and our APIs to sell a solution within the overall MOBI platform and within the workflow and make it a much more extensible platform and greatly enhance the value to our customers. I also mentioned analytics earlier. We've got really big plans on how we're going to be able to use this data we have from these million-plus devices and provide much better insights into our customers. That's going to be a big initiative that's coming up here. I can't reveal everything. We certainly have some great surprises coming up, but like I said, I'm very optimistic about what the future means for MOBI and our customers.
Well, a huge thank you for coming back on today. But before I do let you go, can I just ask that you let anyone know where they can find you online and maybe even contact MOBI if they've got any questions over any of the topics we've discussed today?
Yeah, well, and thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. The easiest way to get a hold of us is going to our website. It's MOBI, MOBIWM.com, and there's many different ways that you can contact us and even bubble up to myself if anything here piqued your interest and wanted to learn more. I'm always happy to have those types of conversations.
Well, one of the things that I've loved about our conversation today is so many times now, every day, I see on my newsfeed and timeline of automation kills jobs and those headlines with the robots with the red eyes. But you guys completely get it, and it's not like that at all. I mean, your Mobots, for example, do the robotic tasks. And by doing that, they actually free employees up of those repetitive, those mundane and time-consuming tasks to actually put time back into their days and let them do what they're good at, being human and doing those higher-level tasks. So thank you so much for delivering that message and coming back on today. And I hope to get you back on again in a few months, see how you're getting on.
That's great. Thanks so much, Neil. Appreciate it.
Another great thing about a shark is it's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. Sorry, I went off again. The key word for me is Indianapolis. It just seems kind of trigger something in my head and sets me off on a Quint impression and the Indianapolis speech from Jaws. But seriously though, I love MOBI's approach here of enablement, integration and orchestration. And when adding product features, MOBI seem to have two simple goals in mind. The first is to simplify mobility management, and the second is to improve their user experiences. And each of these new features seem to be all about making it easier to view, manage and take action within the context of an entire mobility program by having everything centrally located in one platform. And that can only be a great thing. But what did you take away from today's episode? Please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, stick a / and podcast on the end, and you can leave me a virtual voicemail too. So keep those messages coming in, and keep your iTunes reviews coming in too. And I'll report back for your listening pleasure first thing tomorrow. But more than anything, a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.